Hi guys, just give me a second. I'm just seeing whether it's a good time to start. Should I wait for a couple of minutes? One second. Let me put my phone on silent first. Yeah, so Gullapalli Kalyan is live now. Okay, so we'll start. Yeah, so first of all, friends, thanks for joining me. Happy Republic Day. The 72nd Republic Day function today for the country, celebrations for the country. So, congratulations to one and all. Happy Republic Day once again. Guys, a small disclaimer, a confession. This is my first Facebook Live event ever. So I'm a little nervous, jittery, but I'm hoping that as the event moves forward, I'll, catch the flow. Okay, so just bear with me for some time. And welcome to the launch of Therein Lies a Tale, my first ebook. Therein Lies a Tale, 47 short stories that will touch the Indian within you. So that's the name of the book, Therein Lies a Tale, 47 short stories that will touch the Indian within you. Congratulations. There's a new author in town and he's published his first ebook, and that's me, and that's the name of the ebook. So, therein lies a tale, 47 short stories that will touch the Indian within you. I'll repeat that. Therein lies a tale, 47 short stories that will touch the Indian within you. This book, as is very clear, is about India, is about Indians. And I believe it's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be out with this book. Ever since I started reading, I dreamt of writing, and ever since I started writing, I dreamt of publishing. And this journey has taken a long time, but better late than never. And I've come out with a book, and it's a very very happy occasion for me, very serene occasion for me, very nice occasion for me. And thank you, whoever was there, and to be a part of this mega event in my life. So before I introduce the book, which is basically the agenda for the session, let me just, make a brief mention of why I wrote the book. So, the journey of writing a book did not begin with writing, it began with reading. So, ever since I was a kid, I was an avid reader. Reading is a habit, is a passion, is a, I just love to read. Books are, I believe, my best friends. I have a library of my own, which is a collection of more than 100 odd books. Most of them are half written, half read, unread, completely read, in various stages of being read. I simply love to spend time with books, and they are my best companions. I read when I travel, I read when I eat, I read when I do everything practically. Okay, so reading is a habit that I somehow cultivated. I was lucky to cultivate as a kid. Predominantly, the credit for that goes to my father, who used to encourage me to read. He used to buy me truckloads of comics, Amar Chitra Kadhas, etc. And my school, Chinmaya Vidyalaya Thirubali, had a neat little small little library, and I have read probably all the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drews, books out of those library sections. And as I graduated, I went to a lot of other fiction, non-fiction books. I remember there was a time in Kolkata when I was preparing for MBA entrance exam. There used to be this small, not small, actually a very big lane called College Square, where they used to have second-hand books. And I used to absolutely love spending time there, flipping through the various books, reading them, buying some of them because I was short of cash at that time, buying some of them and really enjoying. I had a great time. That's when I read the bulk of my autobiographies and biographies. So, as time progressed, I started developing a taste for writing, and this entire thing came to a head during the pandemic lockdown, when I had truckloads of time. That's when I started writing. I started writing a blog. I started writing about things that I care for. But as I wrote, I realized that I care for a lot of stuff. Okay, I care for science. I care for philosophy. I care for religion. I care for sports. I care for biographies, autobiographies, self help, personal finance. You name it. I'm as comfortable with the arcane theories of quantum mechanics as I am with the esoteric teachings of Swami Vivekananda. I simply love to read anything that is worth reading. So I wrote a lot of I wrote a lot of articles on the blog, on my Tumblr, and one day suddenly I decided, okay, it's time for me probably to publish. So that's when I decided to publish this. The decision to publish I took on I think Dashera of last year, and which was I think November, October, November. So so this is February. It took me about 2 3 days, 2 3 months, but finally the book is out. And this is January 26th, Republic Day, and I think it's a fantastic occasion for me to launch this book, because this is a book on India and Indians. So this book once again is called Therein Lies a Tale, 47 short stories that will touch the Indian within you. So let me take you through what the book contains. This book contains 5 sections. Uh, the first section is called Sare Jahan Se Acha. It contains tales from India. Okay, so this is tales from India, not just a particular period of India. It cuts across the entire spectrum of the immense lifespan of India, but this is a tale basically on India. For example, there is a tale, there's a chapter called Morning Song of India. Morning Song of India is a very interesting story. The Morning Song of India is actually another name for Janaganamana, our national anthem. So when Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev, in 1905, when he wrote Janaganamana, he called it Bharata Bhagya Vidhata. Okay, which means Bharat is basically Bharat, India. Bhagya is destiny. Vidhata, dispenser. So dispenser of Bharata's destiny. Okay, this was supposed to be an invocation to the Almighty, the dispenser of Bharata's Bhagya. Okay, he published it in a magazine called Tattva Bodhini Patrika, which was basically the official magazine of Brahma Samaj. Okay, it contained 5 paragraphs. Over the years, this became one paragraph, and that paragraph was taken as the first paragraph was taken as the national anthem for India. But before this became the national anthem, there's a small school or maybe college in Andhra Pradesh called in a place called Madanapalli. It's called Besant Theological College. So in 1919, once Rabindranath Tagore went to that college, and he sang out that song Bharata Bhagya Vidhata, which was actually in Bengali. The school loved it so much that they requested Gurudev to translate it into English. The English translation is called the Morning Song of India. Okay, so this small story enumerates the sequence of events that happened, and the story also contains a very old illustration written in the handwriting of Gurudev. Okay, all those 5 paragraphs are there. They're called the Morning Song of India. Okay, so it's wonderful that way. Okay, so that's phenomenal, and it's a very very interesting story. This is a part of Sare Jahan Se Acha. Another story in this section is basically a story about Cyril Radcliffe. So the border lines between India and Pakistan and basically India and Bangladesh are called Radcliffe lines. Okay, so these Radcliffe lines are had been drawn on the map. Okay, had been designed, and they had been determined by an Englishman called Sir Cyril Radcliffe, and hence they are called Radcliffe lines. The story about Sir Cyril Radcliffe, his entry into the Indian political scene when Lord Mountbatten was the viceroy, and the difficulties and challenges he faced in basically dividing India and Pakistan, India into India and Pakistan, and India and East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. He was so frustrated, so he finished the job. He went back to England and he declined to take the salary, saying, "I have not done a good job, and I'm never going back to India and Pakistan because I know that these guys hate me. I will never be liked there, so I'm not going back. I refuse to take the salary." This is a very very interesting tale. This tale is called Sir Cyril Ratcliffe and his bloody lines. So this is a chapter from the section Tales from India. Sare Jahan Se Acha. So there are many such, 7 or 8 such interesting tales. One tale is Desi dinosaurs. Did you know that dinosaurs are not just a Western phenomena that has been, that has been highlighted by Steven Spielberg? The largest ever dinosaur that walked on Earth walked on Indian soil. It was called Brihat Kayasaurus. Brihat is large, Kaya is body, Saurus. Brihat Kayasaurus. So Brihat Kayasaurus walked on Indian soil. Did you know that there was a dinosaur called Jainosaurus which walked on Indian soil? It was a giant-like grass-eating dinosaur. Very very actually its name was not given Jainosaurus because it was grass-eating. It was basically discovered by one Dr. Jain, okay, a paleontologist, Dr. Jain. So that's why it was called Jainosaurus. But it was grass eating, and like the Jains, it was grass eating. There are about 20 odd species of dinosaurs that walked on Indian soil. Okay, this chapter enumerates most of them, and also it says it tells us about a dinosaur park in Balasinor in Gujarat. It's a beautiful story, and there is a beautiful story within the story. Please read it. It's amazing. So the first section is called Sare Jahan Se Acha, and it it basically it's about tales from India. The second section is called Namami Bharatam. Namami Bharatam contains tales from the concept of Bharat. Okay, transcending the concept of India, going into the concept of Bharat. Okay, so there are about 10 or 11 stories there, and all of them are my personal favorites. For example, there is a tale on Rama Setu. Okay, which is also called Adam's Bridge, which is also called Nala Setu, which is supposed to have been made during the times of Ramayana by Lord Rama and the Vanara force army. Okay, now there's a raging debate whether Ram Setu is mythical or whether it is historical, whether Ramayana actually happened or whether Ramayana is mythological. Okay, so there is a beautiful book, by a couple of writer scholars, Dr. I forget the name, Dr. Mrs. Hema and Dr. D.K. Hari. Sorry, I got it. Dr. D.K. Hari and Mrs. Hema Hari. Okay, this couple actually have an organization called Bharat Gyan. Okay, Bharat Gyan has written a lot of books on Rama, about Krishna, about the Indian heritage, and they argue in the book that Ramayana and Krishna were historical and not mythological. Okay, and they've given various scientific arguments. Okay, taking technology that was actually invented by or designed and developed by NASA. Okay, so it's a beautiful story that explains why, according to them, the Rama Setu is actually historical and not mythical or mythological. Okay, it's a beautiful story. You should read about it. There is another chapter on Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda was a doyen of Hinduism. Okay, he was at his time, at his peak, he was basically the biggest proponent of Hinduism. But do you know that at one time Swami Vivekananda was a journalist and he hated Hindu monks and mystics, and one day he decided to go to Rishikesh and expose an ashram that contained all the mystics and you know uh, rishis and sadhus there. So he went there with a mission that I want to prove them wrong. I want to show the entire world that these guys are fakes. He stayed there for, he'd gone there planning to be there for 2 days only, but he stayed there for 30 days. He came back, and the doubter became a seeker. And 2 to 3 months later, after some time, he decided that I've had enough of this world, and now I'm going back and become a sadhu myself. And for 2 to 3 years, he learned and he learned and he learned under 2 or 3 gurus, and then he came back and taught the world Hinduism. Okay, so and he was one of the co-founders of Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and his mission was, let me convert Hindus to Hinduism. And the name of the chapter is let me convert Hindus to Hinduism. It's a very beautiful story, amazing story. When I read, because I come from Chinmaya Vidyalaya Thiruvali, a mission that was started by Swami Chinmayananda, and when I read this story, it was amazing. And it's a beautiful story. I think you should read it. It's unbelievably amazing. Another story in this section is about Nirkaya yogis. Nirkaya yogis is an amazing concept. I don't know if you've seen any naked sadhus roaming around the streets, because they are not so visible these days anymore. But India is a land that is full of, not full of, there are a lot of, you can see occasionally naked sadhus roaming around the streets, clothless. Okay, they're not beggars. Okay, they're not undergoing poverty. They're actually Nirkaya yogis. What is Nirkaya? Nir is without, Kaya means body, without body. They have no sense of their body. They have gone into such levels of mysticism that they do not have any feel of their body anymore. And since they have no body, since they feel they have no body, there is no need for clothes. There was one such Nirkaya yogi called Sadashiva Brahmendra, and it contains 3 superb, unbelievable snippets from his life. Amazing stories. Okay, that will capture your imagination. It's a superb, phenomenal. When I read about Nirkaya yogis, when I read the concept, when I read about Sadashiva Brahmendra, I was absolutely, enchanted. So this section called Namami Bharatam contains many such stories, about 10 or 11 such stories. Each one is one of my personal favorites. I wrote them with a lot of innocence. When I was writing those stories itself, I was like, getting into the skin of the story, and I had an immense time writing those stories. The third section is a section called Rathi, Atirathi, Maharathi. I'll repeat that: Rathi, Atirathi, Maharathi. This section is about exceptional people. Rathi, Atirathi, Maharathi. Exceptional, tales of exceptional people. Okay. Example, one story is about, so-called forest man of India. There's this guy in Assamese, guy in Assam, Jadev Payang, who converted a 1360 acre, river island in Brahmaputra into a forest. It took him 40 years. He's a Padma Shri, he's a Padma Awardee today, because of the kind of forest cover he created. Today, in a day and time when basically we are talking about deforestation, afforestation, planting of trees and all that, for 40 years this guy has been building and converting a barren, island inside the river Brahmaputra. 1360 acres he converted into a forest. He's called the forest man of India. Okay, there's a beautiful story about him, and when you read the story, you'll be amazed about why he decided to convert that island into a forest. And that's a beautiful story. Okay, there's a beautiful story. I think you should read it to know it. The second story is on the waterman of India. There's a guy called Mr. Rajendra Singh, who basically left his government job, government doctor job, and took a bus to the last stop that the bus was going. Okay, and he basically picked up that village where the bus stopped, and try to identify what problems that village had. He identified that water was the biggest problem, and because the rivers were getting dried, and over a period of 10 years he decided, and he converted a dead river. He brought a dead river back to life. Okay, and he brought a dead river back to life. The river was dead. You can see the photographs in the book. Before Rajendra Singh came and after Rajendra Singh came, 10 years later. In 10 years, that river was fully overflowing with water, not seasonal, throughout the year. Okay, perennial. It's called a perennial river. Okay, so a barren, a dead and dying river became a perennial river in 10 years' time. And then the villagers decided to create a water parliament, the first a river parliament, the first in the world, okay, to conserve the fish, to conserve the water, to ensure that there are no mining activities, to ensure that grazing is not happening, to ensure that livestock are safe, to ensure that trees are not cut, to ensure that water levels are rich and not being misused. There is a river parliament, the first river parliament of the world. Unbelievably amazing story about a guy in Rajasthan who actually brought a dead river back to life and helped create the world's first river parliament. Unbelievable story. Please read it. It will really, really inspire you. The third story is about a guy called Dr. Sugata Mitra, who won the TED Prize, okay, for creating an innovative educational technique or methodology called the hole in the wall. He called it the hole in the wall experiment. It goes like this a little bit. The summary is, the brief is like this. He went and he put a computer along with a CPU with an internet connection in a slum, hanging to a whatever, balanced under a tree in a slum in New Delhi, okay, and went away and came back 2 to 3 months later, and those illiterate, half naked slum kids had taught themselves, advanced concepts of various things, okay, by themselves, okay. Through the hole in the wall experiment, Dr. Mitra taught the world that a learning environment is more important than a teacher, okay. A learning environment, and so basically he created an environment where learning can happen by itself, okay. And he did this experiments in various parts of not only the country but abroad also, okay. He has a hole in the wall kiosk, even he says, near the Mount Everest, on the top of the Mount Everest, okay, on the Himalayas. And when he presented this story and his findings, he won a cool first prize, cool $1 million TED Prize, okay. So it's a beautiful story about an exceptional educator, okay. So this section is called Rathi, Atirathi, and Maharathi. So this is the third section. The next section is a section called Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. Okay, this is a section about forgotten places. Okay, I'm calling it Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. Interesting name, right? So it's about forgotten places. For example, do you know that there is a place in Karnataka called Hampi? Okay. Today, it does not even have a railway station. The nearest railway station about 12-13 kilometers away. Okay, 12 to 13 kilometers away. Okay, so it's a UNESCO World Heritage Center. It is in such disarray. Okay, at one time, it was the second largest city in the world. It was the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire. It was the capital of Vijayanagara Empire. Vijayanagara Empire was almost, basically, it was about 90% of South India, down Maharashtra down, okay. So it was about from 1500 AD to about 1600 AD. It was the second largest city in the world. Which was the largest city in the world at that time? Beijing. Beijing was the world's largest city at that time. The second largest city was Vijayanagara, Hampi. Today it's a rubble. Okay, so you see the photographs. There are a lot of photographs, and Hampi has got a unbelievable, history. Okay, going back to prehistory. Okay, it's a beautiful story about Hampi. The next story is the next forgotten place, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. The section is Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. The next story is about Ujjain. Do you know that Ujjain was the prime meridian of the ancient world? Ujjain was the prime meridian of the ancient world. Today, the prime meridian goes through Greenwich, right? GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Okay. Before Greenwich Mean Time, Paris Mean Time was the prime meridian. But of the ancient world, ancient India, okay, Ujjain was the prime meridian of the ancient world. There is a this story about Ujjain is also very nice. And when I learned about it, I was like shocked, man. I didn't know about this. I think the world ought to know. So I wrote the story, and it takes us through Greenwich Mean Time, Paris Mean Time, and eventually, it shows historical texts, okay, that prove or that purport to the fact that Ujjain was the prime meridian of the world. There is another very nice story about a small village in Orissa called Manikpatna. Okay, so I will not tell you the story of Manikpatna right now, but I'm telling you, writing the story was one of the pleasures of my life. Okay, it's about a king called Purushottama Dev, and his love story with a Tamilian princess called Padmavati. Purushottam and Padmavati. I read this Amar Chitra Katha long time, and I've read it many, many times later. And every time I read it, I am filled with warmth. And there is a small village in Orissa called Manikpatna, which is related to this Amar Chitra Katha and this entire story. It's a beautiful story. There is another forgotten place called Ralegaon Siddhi in Maharashtra, which Anna Hazare, before he became the Anna Hazare in the national stage, so it was Ralegaon Siddhi's Anna Hazare's home village. It's a small village in Maharashtra which was going through poverty, and when Anna Hazare came in, okay, through various measures, okay, he converted the village into one of the richest villages in the country. Okay, so it's another beautiful story about what Anna Hazare did before he became the Anna Hazare, before the world came to know of Anna Hazare. It's a beautiful story. The final section is a section called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is tales from around the world. For example, there is a story there about Nobel Prize and how the Nobel Prize was born. The Nobel Prize was born actually as a result of bad journalism and existential guilt of a guy called Alfred Nobel, a millionaire, Swedish millionaire. Okay, it's a very, very beautiful story. There are also stories about Albert Einstein, there are stories about Stephen Hawking, and there are many, many stories there which are from around the world. I'm calling this section Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There are about 7 or 8 stories there. Put together this 47 stories, combine 5 chapters. Sare Jahan Se Achha, tales from India, Namami Bharatam, tales from around the world, Rathi, Athirathi, Maharathi, tales of exceptional people, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, forgotten places, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, tales from around the world. Just a brief mention that this book is not actually a scholarly work. Okay, it is not the product of some deep research or something. It is just the product of healthy curiosity about the subject matter. I wrote it with a lot of innocence. When I wrote these stories, I didn't intend to publish a book. So I didn't write them for a target audience. I wrote them simply because I wanted to express myself as a writer. And hence, all the stories are written with a lot of innocence. I don't know if I'll be able to preserve this innocence in future books or not. But this book, all the stories are written with a lot of innocence. So you can see that clearly when you read this book. Second is, you can read this book from any chapter. They're independent chapters, independent stories. So you don't need to follow any. You can read any chapter that you wish to, any chapter that catches your imagination, that catches your interest. You can read. You'll have a great time. Final point, this book has come out as an ebook, okay, not as a physical book at this stage. It is just an ebook available on Amazon Kindle. Okay, there are links. I will publish the links once again. The links are already published. Links for the Indian site and for out of India shores. They have already been published. The links will flash. Okay, so So you can do that. So you can basically click on the links and you can purchase. Finally, before I conclude, I would want to say that I had an absolutely great time writing the stories, writing the book. This is actually a dream come true. I had a wonderful time writing the book. I hope that you have an equally wonderful time reading the book. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can see Shri there. Shri, yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for coming. Vidya Shankar RS, thank you so much. I cannot see others. I don't know why. Like I said, this is the first Facebook live event that I'm doing, so I'm not very familiar with everything that's happening. But thanks everybody who's here. Thank you so much for coming, and please buy the book, download your copy. And if there is any problem that you're having downloading the book or whatever, please ping me. I'll help you. It is available on, so you have to download Kindle app if you're using it on your phone. So you have to download Kindle app, Amazon Kindle app, and you can type therein lies a tale, or you can click on the link. Okay, and you can buy the book. Thank you so much once again. Thank you. Bye, have a great day. And